Today we're going to overhaul the bed of my Jeep Gladiator. If you're following along with the updates to the Demonator, a couple of weeks ago we were over at Capit and we put on the new Alu cab contour canopy and their evergreen tent on the top. But we've still got some work on the inside to do. We've got to rip out the old deck system because we don't need that in there anymore. So it's taking up room. We don't need it for security because we have the new canopy. We've got to get some molly panels mounted around the sides of the bed from adventure rack systems so that we have some places to tie things down and start to rearrange our cargo. We've got to get some wiring done so that we can put a fridge in the back, as well get these lights working in the Alu cab contour, and I need to figure out a way to tie down my spare tire once we're all done and said with this. So let's get started with this week's Demonator update project. Got these molly panels from Adventure Rack Systems and Metal Cloak that now that we've got the deck out that we spent a couple hours pulling up this morning, we have room for these. So I want to get these mounted in the bed. There's the two side ones and the front one.
So John and I were trying to figure out how the mounting went with these molly panels. I really began to wish that we pulled the deck system out and did this before we put the new Alu cab canopy on. Because what we're figuring out is we're going to have some additional work now because we have to take all of the canopy brackets off before we can take the trail rail system off, which the molly panels have to slide up and underneath and use the same bolts to mount to the bed. And this is going to get us into a little bit more trouble than we were planning here in a few moments.
So we got some of these giant Rivnuts, if you guys are unfamiliar with these, like squish nuts or whatever. I'm gonna go see if I've got a tool in the garage big enough for these, because you need a certain thread size.
So I was in the garage looking for a tool for these Rivnuts. John came in for me that we have some bolts that are giving us some challenges.
One that goes back on. Oh, now it's really not happy. Well, you know, at least we can get it off now.
Yeah. Okay.
That one's going back on with one. Hopefully we don't lose too many more of these.
So not quite sure what happened here, but we're gonna have to get some replacement bolts at some point, but not today. So I decided to start taking the driver's side off, and fortunately we didn't end up snapping any more of the bolts on this side.
While we continue to snap some bolts, getting the clamps off for the canopy, I'm just in here trying to find the right Rivnut die. I've got this, if you guys ever use this, from Astro. It's a Rivnut tool, basically lets you put the set the Rivnut in. It's basically like a rivet, but it's threaded. So I don't know if you guys have ever seen these, but you drill a hole out, you push this in the hole. This has a screw-on piece that follows it in, and then the way that it works is only the bottom half of this is threaded. So you then take this tool and spread the arms, and it holds this against the die, pulls the outside up, and squishes this thing like a pancake. So you get a little ridge here so that it's grabbing onto both sides of the metal, and then you've got a nice mounting point to screw a bolt in. The thing is, all these dies are different sizes. So I've got an M5, M6, M8 here, but I don't have an M10 or an M12 for larger ones. As we make more and more changes to the Jeep, I end up with different parts that I just don't need. So often I try to sell off some of these things and give good deals to my friends and you guys that may be interested in picking them up. But I live on Vancouver Island, which is more difficult for a lot of people to get to. And that's where this week's video sponsor is going to really help out, YouShip. For example, let's take a look at this adventure rack system that I took off the Gladiator that I want to sell. If somebody wanted to buy this and they're not here on Vancouver Island, I can open up YouShip's app or go to their website, put in the dimensions for the rack, once I package it all up, and then YouShip is going to give me an estimated cost to ship this to any location that I might want to send it to. So YouShip does this by connecting people with extra space in their trucks with people like me that need to ship things around. So we can take things like these rims that I have sitting around from the Gladiator and find someone that's got room in their truck to ship them at an affordable rate. So you just create a new listing with what it is you want to ship, and then that listing is going to go out to all the registered users that have potential truck space and maybe going in the direction that you need, and they can give you an actual bid and quote to ship your item. And if you can't be flexible with shipping times, you can also select to use a traditional courier and save a few bucks going through YouShip. So if you're like me and you've got some Jeep parts that you want to sell and you need some help with the shipping portion, go check out YouShip at youship.com. There's a link down in the description below.
You can check out this QR code right here. Remember, that's YouShip.com. And a huge thanks to YouShip for sponsoring this week's video. So the way these molly panels attach, they use the 3 bolt holes along the top of the molly panel, which is where the trail rail system secures to the bed of the truck. So you want to make sure that these holes are lined up exactly before you do any drilling in the bottom where we have to put the 2 nutserts or riv nuts in the bed of the truck. So I'm just using the trail rail to get everything lined up and using the bolts to make sure it's exactly where I want it. And then we're going to tap a couple holes in the bottom and we'll put these nutserts in.
Only want to drill 1 set of holes in the box of the Jeep.
Yeah.
Ideally.
No, I think that's...
So after checking the fitment several times, we put a couple marks in the bed of the truck and hope that we have it in the right spot, because now we're going to start our drilling. We're starting off by drilling a couple smaller pilot holes, and then we're going to move up to the large full-size drill bit.
Time for the 17/32 drill bit.
I wasn't able to find the right size nutsert tool, so we end up using the included bolt and nut method that came in the Adventure X system kit. It's not ideal and it takes a lot longer and there's more likelihood of error, but we seem to be getting it okay.
All right, after a battle with the ghetto way of putting riv nuts on, we've got 2 in. Riv nut right there is all squished. And now it's pinching the material in the bed. We're just gonna mock up the Blue Sea fuse block here, which is gonna go, I don't know yet. The idea was to put it along here somewhere. We've got this wire that comes in from the cab of the Jeep where we've got the EcoFlow connected to it.
Tie it behind there. Like
That's what I mean. I'd rather
toilet and tie it behind.
I'd rather tie it off behind it. But how do we get this up?
The other thing I'm trying to figure out is how to cover up the big hole where the optional AC 110 port would go, which is what we're using to bring the wire up and into the Jeep. There was a cover plate that went there, but I lost it somewhere along the way.
Okay, we've got one side of the molly panel in now. Looking good. And we're just about to start doing the other side. And while John was doing that, I was working on some wiring, and I totally forgot to film this. You guys asked me about wiring last time, because this goes directly to the Delta 2. So this is just the Blue Sea panel. We've got an input feed coming from the Delta. So now we've got this whole 30 amp panel that we have in the back, and we've got 2 wires of positive negative, which is great because you can terminate a negative to this. And then this is just gonna, well, right now it's just hanging off, but we're gonna wrap this around the top. And we've got this connected to the connector that runs these 3 lights, because the alley cab contour canopy has 3 lights, 1, 2, and there's one right above us here. So those will always be powered as long as that circuit is powered, which it will be because they'll be running the fridge. And then we've got that wire comes into the cab of the Jeep here. If you go back a couple videos where we put the alley cab canopy on, I showed you guys where we routed this wire through underneath. Len drilled a hole, ran it out along the frame rail and up into the box. But we've got this LED power supply here. This is a cool little device I found on Amazon, because one of the biggest challenges with the EcoFlow is the 12 volt circuit, which is a cigarette plug right later on there, is only I think 8 or 10 amps. So if you want to run anything of any significant power draw on it, it'll trip it. And so usually like a fridge is the maximum you can run. So to wire that Blue Sea panel up, I found this. So this basically takes the AC and converts it to DC. So this has got 300 watts of DC output, which is about 25 amps. And basically it's just an electrical plug on one side. So you plug it into the inverter. Now this is gonna be less efficient because you lose in efficiency by converting battery through the inverter and then through the converter back to DC again. But what it gives me is 25 amps, 300 watts, and it basically just comes with a positive and a negative on the other end. So you'd use it for like LED garden lighting or anything like that. And we've just connected it up to the positive and negative that run to that Blue Sea panel. And then that's it. Now we just plug it in, and when we turn the inverter on, it powers the Blue Sea panel back there with Chef John. And we can get some lights, and the fridge will run off it. And if I need to run any other additional lighting or maybe a connector up to the rooftop tent so we can have some power in the tent. We've got 25 amps drawing off the EcoFlow that we can use. So just finished wiring up another circuit to the Blue Seas. This is just kind of dangling outside the Jeep at the moment, but we've got the IceCo fridge now hooked up. Basically what I did is I took the 12 volt cable that came with it, which plugs into it. So I lopped off the end of this, the other end of this. So bare wire there, but we just took the other end, put a couple ring terminals on it, and then connected it up to the Blue Sea. And the only challenge I had to have with this was figuring out, pull this out of here, had to figure out which side of this was positive and negative. So it turns out the right hand side here is the positive and the left hand side is negative. And that was super easy to do. We know this middle one here is positive. Doesn't matter which one of the probes we use, but this is positive. And then we just probed the other connector, but you can also do this with the bare wire, because then we had to decide which bare wire was actually positive and negative. So if you take this probe here and you connect this probe to one of the wires like this, if it's the right wire you'll show some resistance, and if it's the wrong wire it'll be 0 on the multimeter.
So while I was finishing up the rest of the wiring, Chef John was making quick work of the third MOLLE panel, which goes across the back of the box. This also uses the same mount points that the trail rail system does, so we had to pull that off and then put 2 more holes in the bed of the truck for the nut certs. I'm finishing off all the wiring by wrapping it with some Tessa tape. It just makes it look clean and tidy. More importantly, if I do nice and tidy wiring, next time I show up at Epic I won't get yelled at. The lights that come in the alley cab contour canopy are all wired into channels already, but there's some nice little spots to tuck in the additional wiring that I had to do to run it back to the sub panel. And here's a quick shot of what the bed looks like with all 3 MOLLE panels in it before I start loading in the rest of my gear and spare tire. The goal is to have my 40-inch spare tire standing straight up vertically across the back of the bed. We got it in and found it was just rubbing against the roof, so I decided to air it down, and it gave it that extra few millimeters that we needed to be able to roll it to the back of the truck. Next, I loaded in my new IceCo APL 35 fridge, which you can check out the review in the top right corner. This might be my new favorite fridge with its all aluminum lightweight design. We're going to use some straps to secure the fridge to the MOLLE panel. This is a bit of a temporary solution because I do have a fridge slide coming for it, but it's going to keep it in place on the drive down to Overland Expo. And the last thing I'm going to throw in is a propane tank. I'll show you what we'll be using this for here in just a second.
John and I have been working on this all day long. He actually had to go home. It's like 7:30 p.m. I started at 8 o'clock this morning doing an oil change on the Deemner. But I really need to get some sort of seat delete solution. I've still got one seat in here for my daughter and wife when they're in the truck. But I need to come up with something. Now, I've got this sitting on some mats. I'm going to go up to Chef John's tomorrow. We're going to make a little wood platform. I have to keep these raised up off of the floor. That's why we have the pool noodles underneath here. The exhaust from the V8, which channels right under here, puts out so much heat. Last year when we drove to Moab, I actually fried a fridge that was sitting right on the floor, so I have to keep a bit of insulating there. But I'm looking at seat delete solutions. If you guys have some recommendations, let me know in the comments. I still haven't decided which exact one I want to go with, but it will just be a 60% delete. I've seen some that have some panels on the back. That'd be kind of handy. But we've got the EcoFlow Delta 2 with expansion battery. That gives us 4,000 watt hours of charging, and things are kind of roughed in a little bit, but we've got the EcoFlow alternator charger connected in here. That's giving us 800 watts of charging to the Delta 2. And then, as I was talking about in the video, we've got the LED power supply that's connected up. That gives us 25 amps or 300 watts at 12 volts running into our Blue Sea system. It's a little less efficient because it plugs into the inverter on here, but it gives us more DC power, which is what we need for in the back. Not too many other updates other than the other thing I did, I took the, well, never mind the radar detector, that's just for our road trip, but I took down the rear view mirror, and boy does that make a difference. It literally takes 30 seconds to take your rear view mirror off. If you don't need to see out the back of your vehicle, like in here, sure does open up your view more. Okay, I'm gonna jump in real quick because it's actually the next day from shooting the previous scene. We didn't actually leave the EcoFlow sitting on pool noodles and a rubber mat. Just spent the last hour or so hanging out with Chef John up at his place. He helped me, big time helped me, because I'm not very good with fabricating anything. Put together this wooden platform which raises this up about 4 inches off of the floor of the Jeep so that we get it off of the heat coming up from the exhaust. But it also has some attachments on the side so that we can tie down the EcoFlows to the platform so they're not bouncing around, wobbling everywhere. And it's got a couple pieces on it so we can remember exactly where each one goes when we put them in there. I don't know if I'll have time to paint this, but this is going to be a temporary solution for now until we get some sort of seat delete platform in here. But I'm thinking painting or Raptor lining it or something like that, because honestly, it looks pretty good. Now I've still got some packing to do. I need to get all my sleeping stuff stored up in top of the Evergreen, but I'll just kind of show you the final back of the truck because we've got some stuff in here. We'll open up all 3 panels. This is the great thing about these canopies styles, being able to open up all 3 sides and get access to your gear. But well, I guess I didn't have the tailgate latch because it opened all the way on its own, but it should not fall open on its own normally. So we have all the Molly panels on the sides. We did both sides. Huge thanks to Chef John for spending most of his day in the cave, getting those bolted down and helping me out with a lot of this. But we've got them all around each side. Now we've got the new Iceco fridge. If you want, check that out. There's a video up in the corner. We just did a review of this, but this is the new all aluminum fridge. This is just temporary. Right here, I have a fridge slide coming for it. It just didn't arrive in time for Expo, so I'm going to put this on a slide so we can pull it out. But we've got the new, look at that, 35-liter fridge, and the lid stays open, so if you're grabbing stuff out, maybe I should turn this around the other way until I get a slide so that I can come to the side of here and grab stuff out. That might be a good idea, actually. All right, we'll rotate that around. Doesn't really matter, but we've got it wired in. Got a connector with a little Blue Sea sub panel hanging out right there. I've got it kind of temporarily mounted until I figure out exactly what I want to do here with mounting that panel. But it's just kind of, I put a couple magnets on it and it's just magneted to the side of the box. But we've also got all our lights wired in now. So when the inverter is on, let's flip that on. All I have to do is flip on my inverter in the app. I can hear it beep in the truck. There, my fridge just clicked on, and that's going to start drawing some power because it needs to cool it down. And now we can turn the little lights on up here. Where is it? Right here. So now all these come on, and there's 3 of them. There's one there, there, and there. And these have 2 settings. They have a low and a high. So there you go, all wired in. So we wired all that in. Great thing about these Molly panels from Venturac Systems, we can strap down things like our 11-pound propane tank, which wasn't really going to make a video about this. I bought one of these little Ignite fireplaces with the little rocks in them. Runs off propane. They're about 1/10 the cost of the Howl and uses about 1/10 the propane, but also probably it also doesn't really put out nearly the same amount of heat as the Howl. But it's nice ambiance, gives you a little warmth if you sit close to it. So we've just got a little 11-pound tank in there. And then I've strapped down the monstrous 40-inch spare tire here. I actually had to air it down because it was just bumping the ceiling, but it just fits in there. So I don't know, I got some other ideas for what I want to do in here. Obviously we've got to get the fridge slide in here. I was thinking about actually building a little deck and then putting the fridge slide on it. Then I can hide some stuff underneath, but I got lots of room to put all kinds of crap in here. So I'll put some links down below for you guys if you want to check out some of the products we use, as well as a QR code right here. If you enjoy these kinds of videos, guys, hit that subscribe button. I'm always uploading new videos, reviewing products, modding my Jeeps, and going on adventures. As well, check out some of the playlists for the channel because there's a whole build series of the Demonator, as well as tons of reviews and adventures. Love to see you guys back here on the channel. Leave me any questions down in the comments below. Leave a like, I appreciate it a ton. I'll catch you guys in the next video, probably from Overland Expo Pacific Northwest.